God, help us to listen to your word with understanding, to receive it with faith, and to obey it with courage, for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. Lockdown has kept us at home and very much limited the company we have. And as time goes on, that can be a little difficult. It leaves us longing sometimes for greater freedom. Oh, it's very nice to belong, it's nice to be with people we know, but after a while it can become a little irritating. They know us too well. We're found out in irritating little habits, and there isn't the option of getting away. Even before this last year, there were concerns about our privacy being talked about. The growth of CCTV has not gone unnoticed. The collection of our online habits by advertisers, the security of our medical records or our work records were issues that sometimes got raised and talked about. And of course the place of social media, sometimes in terms of bullying or gossip or fake news, even persecution, have been an ongoing story, and one which has raised the anxiety level, for some people at least. So here's a question. How do we react to being known? Is it a threat, or is it a reassurance? We all like to be well thought of, and we have a picture of ourselves that we like to project. It's a good picture, and it comes with a little set of excuses for some very minor imperfections, things that aren't quite as we'd like. And we want those around us to respect us and love us, despite those very minor works in progress. So we come to today's readings. Nathanael. Nathanael brought to Jesus by Philip. Nathanael, by the way, may be the same person named Bartholomew in the other Gospels. Nathanael is what we might call a Christian name. Bartholomew, Bartolomai, is a sort of surname or a patronymic. At any rate, Bartholomew, Nathanael, comes to Jesus and finds that he's already known. Jesus says, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." And he comes straight out and says, "How do you know me?" Has Philip been talking about him? Has Jesus been gossiping or even spying on him? Jesus' answer is equally frank. "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree." But it leaves us guessing a bit. We're not sure why Nathanael is so taken with that answer. And we have to guess. Is Jesus showing that he knew something which Nathanael knew was secret? Something that he'd thought about under the fig tree? Perhaps something that he'd prayed about? That would make sense. Or some struggle he was having, and Jesus' comment about an Israelite in whom there's no deceit is some answer that impresses Nathanael so much. We can't be sure, but it does tell us that for Nathanael, Jesus' knowledge of him is reassuring and enough to make him an instant believer. Nathanael was ready for the challenges and the rewards of being known. The story of Samuel's a little different. Samuel, as a young child, was learning to hear and recognize God, as we must too, for God's voice is not widely recognized now either. That verse 1, "In those days the word of the Lord was rare, there were not many visions," applies equally well to 2021. Samuel did learn. He would become the last and the greatest of the people we call judges, the prophetic leaders of Israel, who led the nation before they had kings. And as we read, the message, that first message he had to receive and deliver, was not an easy one. And there were other times in his life when that was true. It wasn't always an easy life, and his role as prophet and judge was sometimes demanding and even dangerous. But he was in no doubt that he, and indeed all of God's people, were known and understood. And ultimately, that was a source of confidence for him. For Samuel, as for Nathanael Bartholomew, being known was the doorway to truth. I imagine both of them had struggles, giving up their excuses, giving up their illusions, their carefully cultivated self-image, in order to be real and be forgiven, and to learn to look at themselves as God saw them, not as they wanted other people to think of them. Cultivating a self-image of honesty and not of flattery is hard work, as many figures through Christian history have understood and sometimes written about. But if it's hard work, it's also their hope. It was their hope because it was the key to living well with those around them. In those days, they were probably closer and less escapable even than a house in lockdown. But it wasn't just for a quiet and harmonious life that they were known and accepted that knowledge, but for the blessing of being what God intended them to be. A judge, a prophet, a disciple. Samuel and Nathanael were blessed and became a blessing to many who knew God through them. They were indeed God's gift, and they were happy to be God's gift. And so God's invitation to us is that, yes, like Nathanael, we should be disciples. We should accept the call to follow. And part of that call is to recognize that we are already known. Known as we really are. No excuses. But known with a welcome and a love. Not a papering over of cracks. Not a saying that everything is good and we're the best people we could possibly be. But a welcome and a love and a way forward. Is God welcome at that level by us? Can we grow through the embarrassments, the difficulties of being known in all our irritating detail? That's a question only you can answer. But maybe lockdown will help us to find out, as we struggle with being confined, and perhaps with being known more closely. Let's give thanks for both of these men, but much more, let's give thanks for a God who knows us, always has known us, and who gently bypasses the stories we want to tell, the image we want to project, and offers us instead the reality, the real us, and a future starting here, which takes that real us and gives it blessing and makes it a blessing for others. It's a wonderful thought, but only you can make it a reality. Amen.